Daniel Shin produced this episode. I'm Nova Safo, and that's Marketplace Tech. This is APM.
Now back to Studio A and the award-winning Scott Micklin Morning Program on KSJE.
My guest in the studio this morning, talking a little bit about Salmon Ruins, the Executive Director of Salmon Ruins, Tori Myers, is here. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Welcome to KSJE. It's been a while since you were, at least on the radio, you were telling me.
The last time, I think, was with Connie Gotch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That is quite a long time ago.
It is a long time ago.
Yeah, our first program director here at the radio station. Yeah. So, well, welcome. It's great to have you here and to represent Salmon Ruins, which is a great, again, gem in the county, I would say, and maybe an undiscovered gem for some people, which is why I wanted to bring you in.
Are surprised that there's something that is that big that they can visit, that's right off the highway, doesn't involve any bad roads, and is easy to get to and open pretty much every day of the year.
No kidding. That's very true. And the reason I wanted to bring you in is because a lot of people think with the federal government shutdown that a lot of the federal sites are closed, like Chaco Canyon and Aztec Ruins and Mesa Verde and things like that, or at least on limited hours or what have you. Salmon Ruins is not a federal facility, and so you've never shut your doors.
That's
and
right.
You're still open.
We are open every day from 9 to 5, and we are delighted to entertain people who want to see an archaeological site that has been partially excavated, somewhat stabilized, which is a method of restoration that uses authentic methods and doesn't artificially reconstruct things. And we also have a number of other displays related to other time periods and other cultural groups, and so we've got a lot to share with everybody driving by.
Very true. And just to be clear, you were located between kind of Farmington and Bloomfield, literally right off the highway, as you said.
The highway.
No crazy roads to maneuver, navigate, and really accessible to a lot of people.
It is. In fact, we are about 2 miles to the west of Bloomfield.
Right.
So if you are driving on 64 between Farmington and Bloomfield, we're right outside of Bloomfield.
There you go. And there's plenty of signs, can't miss it. And the site, as you said, there's a lot of things to it. Again, the ruins are in the same somewhat time period as you might find at Aztec or Chaco. It's all part of that greater system, correct?
Yeah, they are. Our site was built starting in the 1060s, but the majority of the construction was between 1088 and the 1090s. So it's just about the same time period of construction as what you get at Aztec. It has Chacoan architecture, so it's related very strongly to the architecture in Chaco Canyon. And while you can't get to Chaco Canyon right now, you can see very similar architecture from the 10 and 1100s at Salmon Ruins.
Right, interesting. And how many people do authorities think maybe lived at Salmon Ruins during the height of its occupation?
It's a pretty big site. There's a couple hundred rooms. We think there was 3 stories at one time. There is photographs from the 1870s that show a 3rd story that was no longer standing by the time it was excavated in the 1970s. And we think there's a population between 250 and 350 that would have lived there during that 200-year period of occupation.
Interesting. Very cool. And of course, it's near the river.
It's very close to the river.
And so that explains maybe a little bit why that site was selected. It certainly is in some alignment too, I think, with Chaco and in proximity to Aztec, and so it all kind of makes sense if you think about the populations at that time.
Well, when people are traveling by foot, in prehistoric times, there's no horses, there's no other types of animals that they can ride on, so they're traveling by foot, they want to stay close to water sources, and traveling along the rivers makes a lot of sense.
Sure. Right, exactly. And that provided a lot of food and water and other things too, and so that makes a lot of sense, at least to me, right?
This culture is also farming, and so they're using the river for their primary water source. They're irrigating off of the river and creating their own methods of water manipulation that would be essential to farming in a desert climate.
Yeah, very cool. And so the work, I know, that goes on at Salmon too, because it's also a library, I think. You've been collecting things and sharing things with other researchers, and that's part of its existence, I think, too, and what makes it so
Part of
special.
its existence. We are a county facility, and so we have become, whether it was intentional or not, the official repository for donations of things that people find on their property that they want to donate, or things that have come to them by being inheritance types of items. We've become the
Not
official...
much anything, though. It has to have some archaeological value, I suppose, right?
Right. So
Okay.
people bring things in to ask us questions sometimes,
Got it.
and it's not legal to suggest a value of artifacts if they're actually artifacts, but it is legal to evaluate the time period, and if it looks like something we expect to be part of this region.
Okay.
And we do that for people who have found something and want to bring it in and show it to us. We take donations of that type of thing for our collections, and we use them for research, and we sometimes put them on display. And we have this library, which is very focused. I'd say about 80% of the books in the library are focused on the Four Corners region archaeology, and many of them are rare and out of print, and so they may be the only copies available. And some of those materials are on the San Juan College website for the library.
Nice. Very cool. Well, and again, I know a lot of researchers use that as a resource, right? And they really appreciate that is available to them
Yeah,
in their
absolutely.
work.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense, and that's great. And I guess you could tell them, too, if it's a reproduction or a pretty good fake or the actual real deal, too, when they bring it to you, whatever
A
it
lot
might
of
be.
times you can get a good idea about what you're really dealing with, what you're looking at, and sometimes people are a little disappointed, and sometimes they're pretty excited about it.
Right, I would think so.
I had a guy bring in some strange clay figurines that his kids found out in the backyard, and we decided that they are most likely an old flower pot that had a ring of people holding hands
Okay.
around the outside of the flower pot.
Right.
Quite a popular style from the 70s and 80s. And it broke and it got buried out in the yard, and his kids found it.
Okay.
So,
Maybe not quite as old as they thought.
right.
Yeah, a little newer than
Yeah.
they thought, but that's okay. The site, too, I want to ask you about the museum and also about the
Right.
grounds of Salmon Ruins, because in addition to the ruins, there is other things available. We're looking at a picture right now of the amphitheater that's out there, too, that I know you have
Amphitheater, which,
events.
Events, and works really well for that, especially later in the evening if it's during the summertime, because it can get quite hot out. And so the big cottonwood tree gives a little bit of shade over that area. And then out of the view of that is the Heritage Park, which are reconstructed buildings that represent the whole span of time. This region has 15,000 years of human activity going all the way back to the Ice Age, and we do have artifacts from time to time that represent the end of the Ice Age time period in this area. And so there are a lot of different things going on at different times that are sometimes hard for people to make sense of. So we have a building that represents each of those cultural groups and time periods so that people can try to put them all together
Sure.
to make sense of them.
And these would be structures that would predate the ruins at Salmon Ruins that were used by the people that were inhabiting this area but probably didn't survive because they were built of wood or not stone.
There are a few things that represent an earlier time period, like the pit house,
Yeah.
which is what happens before people begin building pueblos. And there are some other structures that are actually from after
Okay.
the time period of the Salmon Ruins. The inhabitants of the Salmon Ruins would have left the area by the end of the 1200s, and so there are also some structures that represent groups coming in after that time, like the Navajo and the Apache and the Ute, and using the area as hunting and gathering societies, and so we have things that represent them as well.
Telling the whole story, it sounds like, right? And if I remember correctly, there is still the homestead,
The
Salmon homestead that's there too, right?
Yes, and so in the picture you have there the two metal buildings that look like sheds in the background behind the amphitheater
Kind of the
are
upper left-hand
covering-
side of the
Right,
picture.
so those are actually covering the homestead and the carriage house, two of the buildings that are part of the Salmon Homestead complex, and they date back to the 1890s up into the early 1920s of use, and there's also a bunkhouse and a root cellar associated with that. The Salmon family actually owned the property as homestead private land up until the 1960s, and the county purchased it to preserve it as a homestead. It's now the only surviving homestead that you can visit.
Right.
It's open to the public.
Very cool. And so that's available for viewing as well, and visits as well if you go to Salmon Ruins. And then the museum, which is the kind of the first building that you encounter, I think, when you go.
The museum is right at the parking lot.
Yeah.
So it's the first place that you enter when you come into the parking area. And in the museum, we have artifacts from the excavation of the Salmon Ruins site, as well as some pictures of the Salmon family, and sometimes extra exhibits. Right now we have the Ancient X-Files, which is a art exhibit by Doug Miller, who's a Farmington local.
Nice, very cool. And so now, what is, I don't want to give it away, but what is he covering here? I mean, are we talking aliens, or are we talking something else?
We are absolutely talking aliens,
okay,
and also some other fun things.
Okay.
His idea inspired the whole exhibit. He's been working on it for many years, and it is a combination of paintings that look like rock art that also include figures that would be from science fiction inspired ideas. So
Gotcha.
There are some Bigfoots,
Okay.
and there are some aliens,
Okay.
and there are some other really fun things that people can identify, and there's about 30 to 40 paintings involved in the whole show, all of which are for sale, and there are prints as well that are for sale through the museum.
And this will be up until December, you said?
It'll be up until December
exhibit.
21st, so you have plenty of time to come and visit, and anyone who is a local who is looking to do something during the winter time when it's maybe not so much available outside, that would be a great time to visit the museum, and we'd be happy to entertain you.
Very true. You mentioned the other artifacts that you have found at the ruins, and maybe others that come in from other places as well, but to help, I guess, maybe tell the story too, a little bit about the life that was led by people who lived there, and what they did, and the things that they used, I guess, to live their lives.
All of these things are on display to help illustrate what it was like to be a prehistoric person 1,000 years ago, and we have tried to arrange them in a way that really tells a story and makes it clear that this is part of someone's life rather than being just a bunch of objects that are of interest.
Sure. Very true. And if I've learned anything from talking to archaeologists, it's that this is a very meaningful line of work, but it's also, you have to be very patient, I think, in this line of work, because you can be at a site and digging and brushing and being very delicate about what you're uncovering, and then maybe you'll find something, right? And is that kind of what has been happening over these many years at the Salmon Ruins?
Oh, yes. Our site on the grounds that you visit when you come in is only about 30% excavated. Only about a third of the site was excavated. And so there are many items that are still there to be found, and hopefully in the future will become part of research projects. But the part that was excavated has yielded over 1.5 million artifacts that are in storage and available for research. And we try to engage with students as much as possible from all across the country in different universities and come up with some projects that they can be involved with. And I've also had, the last couple of years, some really great interns through the high school college program here.
Nice.
And through the county intern program.
Very cool, very cool. And so we just have a couple of minutes remaining this morning with our interview, but I wanted to ask you too, when we go to visit Salmon Ruins and pay our admission fee, that money helps to support the ongoing work there at the ruins and the museum and all the things that we're kind of talking about today?
Absolutely. We're what's called an unfunded nonprofit, which means that although the county owns the land and helps to do maintenance and repairs in the museum building itself, we actually have to generate our own income, and so we rely extensively on things like admission fees and the gift shop sales and fundraisers throughout the year, and people's generosity in making donations. And all of that goes directly to operating the museum and making sure that it's open every day of the year, except for a couple of big holidays, so that people can visit with their families and learn about the past, and that's what's important to us.
Right, very true. You mentioned too, I think at the beginning of the interview, about the stabilization
Right.
of the site, and so that takes ongoing maintenance, I would think, and expenses a little bit too, and so money that maybe you'd like to spend on maybe excavating more parts of Salmon ruins goes to just stabilizing the parts that are already open to the elements, I think.
Right. The homestead, we were able to protect from the weather by building 2 modern metal structures over top of the buildings that were affected by the storms last summer. But the site is too large to do that. And to put a structure over the site would just be prohibitively expensive. And so the only way to protect the architecture from deteriorating from the weather and from visitors walking through is to do ongoing stabilization. So our stabilization projects involve making sure that the walls stay upright and that they're safe for people to visit, and also that there is something to see when you go there, so it's not completely filled in with the soil that would normally accumulate.
Right, exactly. And so again, and I'm sure there are areas at Salmon ruins, as you mentioned, that have been unexcavated, that just look like mounds of dirt if you didn't know any better.
That's right.
And that's what people can see as well when they go to see it. They can see the work that has been done and the work yet to be done.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, it's a good example of what a site looks like out in the wild, and also the parts that you can walk through and see up close. A special opportunity to get that close to something that old.
there you go. Very good. There's also a website you were telling me too for folks
do
who
have a
want to go
website.
online and find
Yep.
out more about Salmon ruins.
It's easy to get to. It's salmonruins.com, salmonruins.com. And for people who are doing research, there is also salmonpueblo.org, which was set up very specifically to identify areas where someone might request to look at artifacts or records from the excavations. And so that is salmonpueblo.org.
Very good. 2 different sites. So,
Yeah.
excellent. Tori Myers, thanks for coming in and talking with me about Salmon Ruins, which is still open and always
It is
open,
open.
because of its being a county facility and also the other unique nature of Salmon Ruins.
Indeed.
Good to have you here.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. My guest with me this morning on KSJE.
Travel is one of life's great